I'm at home, and I get a phone call from Tony Blair in 2000, and I think it was 1999. It was 2 or 3 years, and then he said, "John," he said, "I've decided to change you, and I've decided that I want you to go to the Foreign Office." And there was another MP for Leeds called Derek Thatcher, who was a foreign minister, and he died. And he was my senior, if you like, you know. He said, "And I want you to take over from Derek Thatcher in the Foreign Office." I said, "Tony, I've hardly been abroad. I know where Ireland is, you know, but I've not travelled very much." And Johnny said, "Foreign Office is for you this time." You know, so I then...
what was that experience like for you in terms of if there was someone that was your senior and then you kind of picked up on that role? Was that quite a big honour or quite a big shout from Tony Blair?
It was a big shout, yeah. So then I went, I put the phone down, and then the Foreign Office rang me. This is minutes after, saying, "Oh, is that John Battle? You're the new Minister of the Foreign Office." He said, "Yeah, well, there's an airline ticket in the morning. This is a Friday night. In the morning, you have to fly to Heathrow. The civil servants will meet you, and you've been flown out to Jakarta to try and sort out the war in East Timor. There'll be staff and notes on the plane." Phone went down. And I thought, Jakarta? Where the heck's Jakarta? You know? Yeah, exactly. Indonesia. And I knew a little bit about the conflict there, because East Timor was a little island right at the far end of Bali and places. And they were trying to separate from the rest of Indonesia, and there were people being murdered, and the city of Dili was being burnt down. So I knew there was... So anyway, I had to go out to Dili, and I remember my first experience as a foreign minister, because you don't really have training in it. You're a politician to work with it. So I've got a file this thick that I'm reading on the plane. I'm really nervous. I get to Jakarta. The Foreign Office civil service meet me there. The ambassador meets me there. They take me to a hotel, top of a hotel where there's a television studio like this, and interview me, and all over the national news here. And now Minister John Battle is here because he has to invite the UN to come in to form a peace. And what I didn't know was the screen was split, and the other screen was Dili, which is in East Timor, and they're showing it being on fire. And I'm stood on top of this thing. So you have a screen of me here and this fire. And there were people in Bramley ringing Mary thinking, they've sent him out into a fire zone. He's going to get... I was 1,000 miles away. Yeah. But what had happened was the man that was leading the rebels was called Xanana Gusmão. And Derek Thatcher had mentioned him to me. Wait for it, little catch. He was training to be a Catholic priest, and he left and became a politician, leader of the people. And Derek had told me that, because Derek wasn't a Christian, but he knew the story. And so they said to me the leader had been brought to Jakarta and was under house arrest in a little bungalow. And the next day they were going to take him out and shoot him in the town square in Dili. So the ambassador said we should go visit him. So we went to visit him in the Land Rover at the British government, the flag on. We got to the house, and there's army outside guarding his house. We go into a courtyard. It's a little modest bungalow. I always think it's like those bungalows up, if you go up the side of Gotts Park, up the road, there's some bungalows there. And it was like one of those. And we went in, and he could speak perfect English. He'd been trained in Australia, and said, and it was a sad thing. He said, well, I did what I could, and I was trying to lead the revolution to overthrow the government, because they were torturing people and saying we had no jobs and we were poor. We needed our land back. But they're going to kill me tomorrow. And then the ambassador turned around and said, there's a tradition in Britain that if we go for a cup of tea in someone's house, you have to invite them back to yours immediately. I said, I said, yeah. I said, so we're getting the Land Rover together and we're taking back to the embassy. So we did. Oh. We got to the gate, and said the ambassador, it's the minister and his colleague, he has to take them back to tea. Is that okay? And he's under house arrest. So we drove out with him, take him to the ambassador's residence, which is behind a gated wall, and getting, so what do we do now? And we'll have to put him up, don't we? And he's not, but they're not going to take him away and hang him. So anyway, they got a bed downstairs or something, and they forgot about it. And after all the carry on, go to sleep. I'm woken up at 7 a.m. saying, President Habibie was his name, has rung up and said he wants to know what's going on and why has the embassy taken his key enemy hostage and given him refuge, It said, so he wants us as the British to be at his palace explaining ourselves by 9 o'clock. Oh. So I come out the embassy to face a water cannon with "Made in Britain" printed on it, faced at me. Good morning. And so you go past, and I got to the place, and so I've now to meet this person who's the president of Indonesia. He's about 5 foot, you know, with the little hat on that the Indonesians wear, and he's got this big chair. I would be sat about where you were, a little bit of a distance away. And he said, "Battle, never heard of you. Is it your real name?" He said, "Violent enough, never heard of you." In perfect English, you know. Oh, he said, "Remind me what little island of Western Europe you come from."
Oh,
"There are 13,000 islands in my archipelago and 17,000 low tide. How many people live on your little island?" "I think there are more men in my standing army than in your little island. And have you come to invade me, Minister Battle?" And I kind of think, oh my God, where do I go from here? And I said to him, "Do you know what?" I said, "Until the night before last, I was doing gas and electric bills. and now I've been asked to be a diplomat, but I'm from Yorkshire and I've not travelled very much, and I've not many diplomatic skills because we're a bit of an outspoken people in Yorkshire. We just like to say it as it comes, you know." And I said, "So I'm not really an ambassador type or a foreign minister type, but I'm a practical man." And I said, "But then I thought you were a practical. Have I got you wrong? Would you be President Habibie that worked with Sir Frank Whittle inventing the jet engine? Because my dad told me you were, and I just remembered your name, and I don't know if you're the same man, because would it be you?" And his face lit up.
Yeah.
And it's me. And he gave me 40 minutes on the internal workings of a jet engine. I didn't understand a word. I just made noises. And then he's just said, "Let's go for a drink with my foreign minister. I'm sure we'll sort this out and can invite the UN in."
Wow.
Oh, there you go. Fantastic.
What did I learn from that? It wasn't all the papers about the policy, but finding what makes the other person's heartbeat, what turned him on. And I said, "You're not really a president, like I'm not really a minister. You know, what makes your heartbeat is engineering, isn't it? And that's where it comes from." And touching that then meant we could invite the UN in. It was a peacekeeping mission. Only one person died in that peacekeeping mission, and they stepped on a landmine. There's still challenges now because the country's poor, but it stopped the war. It held up the war, you know, and they let people cross the border. But it was just knowing the person is more important than knowing the facts and the rigmarole and the history. You have to know a bit of that, but just
it's communicating on like a core level, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Get to the core of the person and see where you go. Yeah,
definitely.
And so that was my Foreign Office experience, really. And it was the Foreign Office had to travel a lot because the countries I was responsible for were China, Australia, or Japan, all that southeast
all the furthest away.
Yeah. And also Latin America. So I argued in the Foreign Office that if you've got Australia here and Latin America here, and there's the Pacific Islands, you know, that lovely Polynesia, and, you know, Kiribati, right? And I would have my office there, please, because it's pointless coming back.
It's halfway either way then. Yeah.
I bet that was crazy for you, having not really travelled outside of the UK much, to then, obviously, you said that experience was mental. Was there any other experiences you had whilst in the Foreign Office that you couldn't have imagined ever going through?
Yeah. Well, there was a wonderful time when I had to go. If the Queen... And if a president is made a president, then they invite presidents and queens and kings from all over the world to go to the inauguration. And Chile, there was a bad time in Chile, you may remember that. You won't remember, but you may know of. In the 70s, it was a dictatorship with the guy that really killed a lot of people in a football stadium, all the rest of it. You know, they shot their own people. And there was a great turmoil about bringing Chile back to a democracy from the violence of the army and military rule. And while I was in Leeds, think back to the student house. In my house lived a Chilean who was a refugee, and he shared the house with us. It was a student house, no mad.
Yeah, there and everywhere.
And all the rest of it. Here we go. Yeah, and Carlos was in the house. And eventually things calmed down in Chile, and he went back home to live in Chile. And I've not kept in touch with him. We didn't ring on the mobile phone or anything like that. Then there's a new president, Lagos, elected in Chile in 2000. And I think it was in 2000. The first, if you like, Labour left president. And so the Queen's invited, she can't go Tony Blair can't go. Robin Cook was the Secretary of State. He can't go. So the one who's the minister for the country has to go. So it's me. So I have to go all the way to Chile for one night and come all the way back again. Yeah, this was usual. So I get on the plane with one that the staff goes with me. I go all the way down to Chile, and we're in this like huge hall, like a church. And on one side were all the visiting dignitaries. I was actually sat next to a woman called Madeleine Albright. Have you ever heard of her?
I haven't.
She was the one who was the Secretary of State for Clinton in America.
Oh, right.
With all the dignitaries, little me with all the dignitaries and all the big way there. I'm sat at the front, and the place is packed and it's inside. I look across at the Chilean side, and then about 3 rows back is this guy with, do you know Don King haircut?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I look at him, I can't believe it. It's Carlos Curubias.
No way.
I pointed at him and he looked at me because they lived in the Bible. I said, it's Carlos Curubias. What are you doing here? This is like in the silence before the president walks in with his satchel. And he stands up and he said, I'm the newly appointed political secretary to the president of Chile. John Battle, what are you doing? So I stood up and said, I think I'm the foreign minister of the United Kingdom.
That is one of the crazy things.
That's brilliant.
It was spot on.
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
I love that.
then we had a drink after the thing and I came back home. And,
As if.
yeah.
You would, yeah.
More world.
Totally, much smaller.
World.
Than
It is, isn't it? Yeah, that's crazy.
And you never know who you'll bump into again. And in fact, even today, I wrote a piece in a book for someone that invited me to. This is just a bit serendipity. I wrote an article in a book, and then I went to help this woman launch the book, 20, 30 years ago. And I'm working on a project at the moment for women who are seeking asylum. I'll tell you a story about it in a bit. And I've had to apply for a grant. And then I had a real rush to fill this grant form in last week to the Plato Trust, and I did it as best I could, sent it off. And then the person that sent me the note back, accepting the grant, was the person that had been with me the book 30 years ago.
Wow.
And I thought, I know you are, Philomena, what are you doing?
What are the chances?
Exactly.
It's all about never burn bridges. That's what the lesson is there.
Absolutely. Especially going up ladders. Don't tread on people going up.
That's it, exactly.
You always come down.
Because that's it. They'll be there when you come back down. That's it. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
Massive lesson. And also that's a good lesson for like in the House of Commons. I don't go back very often, but the key people to know who are the cleaners, the police who guard you, the staff. And it's the same everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Little people that people pick up the paper.
Well, they're the cogs that are keeping it running. Yeah, without them, it'd be a mess.